Hello, my fellow Americans. Welcome to another segment of Garage News. I'm reporting to you tonight from the lovely Warner Robins, Georgia. And tonight we'll be discussing the shifting international order. Being a history major, I've seen many shifts in orders of power throughout the years, or throughout time. And empires rise and fall. Some examples of the Dutch, Mongols, Romans. Even the greatest empire we've seen is the British Empire, and they're past their heyday. But superpowers, as they are referred to today, receive this categorization through exceptional progress in areas like education, technology, competitiveness in the global market, economic output, share of world trade, their military strength and power of financial centers, and the strength of their currencies as a reserve currency. New world orders form and reshape after global events and circumstances all the time. Following World War I and World War II, we've seen the emergence of the liberal world order, or LWO, and the opposing Soviet order. They've been going back and forth indirectly through proxies and through their Cold War. And throughout that time, with the U.S. offering aid for liberal reforms and leading the liberal world order to try and set out and encourage and help nations of the world to become more democratic and become more liberal themselves, and to try and prevent the mistakes of the early 20th century, such as the global wars and economic Great Depressions. They implemented international institutes like the UN, the United Nations, to keep global peace, the World Bank to support economic growth and development, the International Monetary Fund, and the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trades, which eventually became the World Trade Organizations, which were sought to oversee and support international trade and investments between countries. And with the U.S. being the industrial leader of the time after World War II, they had the means and power to threaten opposing countries with economic pressure or military force. But with decades between then and now, and the U.S. consistent economic decline, and Americans now pushing for more infrastructure and focus on our own self-interest rather than foreign and expensive global affairs of aid. Since the fall of the Soviet Union, however, more countries have joined the organizations like NATO, the EU, or both, or the United Nations. And although in more recent years the liberal world order has been continuing to decline from internal conflicts between countries like the war in Russia and Ukraine, global pandemics, cyber attacks, and the emergence of AI technologies, there is a need for new policies to be put in place and a revision of outdated ones. The liberal world order has lost its appeal globally and is now seen more as an extension of the American government, gripping at its slipping influence. As previously stated, those superpowers change and grow over time and shifts in dynamics. In the last few decades, China has been working on its global influence as the U.S. diminishes by offering loans and investments in infrastructure to struggling countries to positively encourage future politics and trade. China, growing to a $3 trillion economy and remaining the largest manufacturer in the world, has been seemingly creating modern-day vassal states globally through loans backed on oil, precious metal mining, military base expansions, and gaining political leverage across the world in every market. But, of course, what comes from most geopolitics leads to corruption and negligency of policies. Close to home, China has input more military force and encroachment on bordering countries, even going as far as to ignoring UN rulings and actually building artificial islands for runways and ports for military trade and use. This has led to increasing political pressure from the oppressed countries looking to and expanding on trade with nations like India and the U.S., also putting strain on China's hold over Taiwan by the U.S. and other countries backing their independence. It was never so simple as to say one nation is doing better than the other, one nation is doing good or bad. on one means of China combating their economic decline and global image in recent years through their soft power initiative. They've been working on platforms and placing institutions to try and positively boost and add their own narrative to their image, even though platforms like Netflix and YouTube aren't allowed or even legal in China. Then we have the ever-growing, originally BRIC, but now currently BRICS groups, consisting of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and most recently South Africa, with a supposed line of countries looking to join. A non-formal multilateral organization, unlike the UN, BRICS now makes up about 40% of the world population and a quarter of the global economy. The leaders rotate chairmanship every year and meet annually, operating on consensus, focusing mainly on economic cooperation, increasing trade and development outside of geopolitics. Bolivia is expected to be one of the next big players added to the BRICS groups, with its placement in the dubbed Lithium Triangle in South America, with 75% of the world's lithium, and Bolivia controlling the majority of that and other precious metals, as well as an immense natural gas deposits. Lithium being what powers our EVs and cell phone batteries, and being crucial for technology, has become one of the most profitable exports of the time. BRICS nations have been leading the de-dollarization plan and shifting global capital away from the World Bank and US dollar and selling off US Treasury bonds. And with the US national debt reaching $37 trillion, while interest alone passing $1 trillion, and the global majority being unhappy with the US's role and involvements in backing multiple sides of the Middle Eastern conflicts and how they're dealing with the war in Ukraine. Nations are running, not walking, to the doors being opened by the BRICS nation involvement and opportunities, even for the smallest countries. Being on the winning side of history for so long and having our relevance being used as currency now running short, we as a nation need to take a breath and readjust our global stance and strategy, with the possibility of World War III or global peace and prosperity through global peace and prosperity for trade being the thin line that we teeter on. Cooperation needs to be pushed for instead of competition, and we can accomplish much more working together rather than fighting for dominance. Which path do you see America and the world at large taking? In my opinion, hopefully the harder, more challenging road of honesty, fairness, and transparency.